3, 2, 1, showtime!
Oh, there we go. CO. Hello, I'm Cade Thomas, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. This is our 17th episode. It's also our first time that we are streaming live in person, so this is all a real test. You can see me up in the corner there. This is not how we're used to doing this, but I am joined this week with Diane and Jennifer, who are live in studio here with us. So yes, this will be a very different experience, but we will see what this is like here, and we'll try it out here. So, but be sure to comment and talk with us if you want to. We'll answer any questions you got. We got a lot of fun things, but really our goal here is to talk about these two movies, which is The Killing of the Sacred Deer and The Lobster. We have a reason to be here. But before we get to the nitty-gritty with that, we like to just have some talking up top. And so, Jennifer, Diane, how are you doing?
Do you want to go first or you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay. Kate, I just have to say, I am so impressed with your broadcast studio.
Oh, thanks.
I really am. It makes my little, corner of my spare bedroom with Ollie in the background. I mean, look very, amateurish. This place is amazing with the soundproofing and the cameras, and I feel like a star.
And it's a different. So I mean, if you watch the other podcast, Cade and Friends, totally different studio. It's not in here at all. So but we kind of have this other. We can point to this other sort of setup here and everything. This is kind of same place I record my part of it, but now we're all in here. We're all in this together.
It's an amazing studio, Cade.
Oh, thank you.
It's very impressive. I think Leon Russell would have been jealous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, just, okay. And Jennifer, this is your first time. This is your first time on the show.
Yes.
And already things have gone off the rails, technically speaking.
Yeah, it's a little... It's fine. It's fine, guys. It's fine. It's fine.
If there is any problems, there is going to be problems this episode. I just want to let you know. But if you're listening to this later as a podcast, hopefully we've snipped out all those problems that we've had. But if you are watching the stream version of it, we'll see. There shouldn't be any audio issues, but there will be some technical switching problems. But
and a couple of water leaks.
A couple of water leaks, yeah. A couple of, I don't know, whatever. Well, I can't even possibly know what the things are. I probably would have fixed it.
Here's one thing that I know will not happen. Ollie will not be barking in the background.
That's very true.
There'll be no Ollie barking.
No Ollie barking.
There'll be other adventures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of the non-furry type.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you do enjoy this thing, let us know, because we might try to do this a few other times with our other guests that live around in the area, or we'll do our virtual. We're good either way. I think the audio probably will be better in this sort of case, but we'll see. We'll see.
We can always fly in guests as well if you guys are interested.
If you're interested.
Yes, in joining us for the podcast live.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So just let us know if this banter is good or not, if you like this more or not. Jennifer, what's it like being on this show now that we've heard it, but now you are in it?
It's one more thing off my bucket list.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It's fantastic. I'm happy to be here. And these are like advanced level movies for my first time. But we'll see how this goes.
You chose these movies, by the way.
I did.
She did. She thought it was going to be a
I
fun
did
movie.
it to myself.
You had, unlike other people who have been asked for this season of movies, you had all the movies to choose from. You
did.
were a
The
part of
first-
the first round draft of
And
what
I was
movie.
like, give me these.
Yeah.
Give me Colin Farrell week.
Yeah, it's Colin Farrell week. Forgot to mention that
Yes.
up top. It's
Colin Farrell
also
week.
I always make healthy decisions.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the director is also. What's the director's name,
Oh
Diane?
my God. We did just discuss that, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Lanthimos? Is
I
that what we
believe so.
decided? Yeah.
Yorgos Lanthimos
Yorgos Lanthimos. Mm-hmm. Yes, director and writer.
Yeah.
rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
Rolls right off the tongue. I would love to meet this guy.
Yeah. Should
Just
be
to
kind of interesting.
have a conversation with him it would certainly change my life, like
Yeah.
these movies have.
And we will get into these movies. We have not discussed, just so everyone knows, what we think of these movies with each other. We have kept that under wraps. There has been little sneaking things that Diane tried to do at different points, and we've told her to not
shut her down.
shut her down to
wouldn't-
preserve the
even-
integrity of this show.
Even when Jennifer and I were traveling together to your studio,
Oh.
and I mentioned the movies,
Uh-huh.
she shut me right down. Let me tell you.
Well,
Save
good.
it for the podcast.
For the podcast, so we get all the things there. And for the, last week was our first time streaming on Twitch as well. So we are also on Twitch. If you are rather listen to us on Twitch, we also do stream there. And Diane and I have talked about we need to start doing games.
Oh, yeah. I think we'd be great at it.
I think so.
I spend most of my days playing games.
Yeah.
I'm retired. That's what I do now.
Yeah. We'll have to do some console games though.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah.
You want to join us, Jennifer? You can.
Sure. Switch is my favorite. I used to be a PlayStation girl, but I'm a Switch girl now.
Yes.
Okay. What games do you play on there?
Right now, I have to admit, it's a lot of Stardew Valley. I'm still in that kind of mode. There's a new one coming out, and I almost hate to admit this. I'm kind of a Disney person.
Well, that's fine. I think the Twitch audience is going to be nice to whatever you say with this.
Well, and Disney Dreamlight Valley is about to come out
What is that?
next week. It's kind of like Kingdom Hearts and Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing all mixed
All
up.
together, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fun.
With Disney characters, and I'm here for it. So I
So
think,
do you have villages and stuff? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
and there's a great big bad. You have to save everything, but you're farming at the same time, and
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Well, not going to play that
Crafting
one,
and-
but
yeah.
but that's good.
Disney's going to own everything.
Don't they already?
Well, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what they, I don't know. I would hesitate to say, but they don't own a whole lot of gaming things. They license them out and whatever and all that stuff. And so, but I do think that is sort of the next stage, or I don't know. Could be.
Give opportunities to game makers everywhere.
Yeah. I loved Kingdom Hearts growing up, and I was just, I hate that we rarely get new versions of that. Yeah.
What games did you like, Diane, growing up?
You're joking, right?
Well, it doesn't have to be video games, just games in general.
Games in general. Let's see. We played hide and seek.
Yeah, that's a good
Played
one.
tag. I had never even heard of the one with the ball that they throw at you.
Dodgeball?
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball.
That was not something that we played when I was a kid at all.
Be thankful.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah,
never
be
played
That
thankful.
was brutal.
It
Not that I
was.
remember.
That's a traumatic thing. I
Yes.
think it's not in my, I don't really remember, I like little glimpses, but I think I've buried those within my subconscious somewhere, which I do with all, bad memories of sorts. Yeah. At some point, something will remind me of that, I think, and it'll be like, oh my God, that happened. But yeah.
Yeah.
We used to play baseball out in the cow pastures. You had to be careful where you stepped. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's, yeah.
We used to throw those at each other.
Yeah.
And you got some good pasture stories, right?
I have some great pasture stories. Pay for one in an upcoming Cade and Friends.
That's right.
Yeah. If you, we'll be honest on this one, but not on Cade and Friends. We're not honest on Cade and Friends. But on this, we did just record an an episode of Cade and Friends before this with Jennifer as the guest, and it's something. So
pesters and tampons, y'all.
If you are
Come on
looking,
now.
if you're looking for ideas for your next horror movie, listen to Cade and Friends podcast with Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be sure to subscribe and find that and be ready for that when it comes out, which will probably be a few months. There's other ones that we have coming out before then, but it's, my goodness, that there were some stories there.
The disturbing thing is we didn't plan it that way. Looking back, it did turn into a horror show.
It was a horror movie.
Yes.
I'll apologize to everyone now. I'm sorry.
I think I'm starting to find all kinds of things in my life that are horror movies after watching those 2 movies this week. Mm-hmm. Thanks
Good.
for these, by the way, Cade.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know, in retrospect, and we're going to get to the movies. Don't worry, guys. In retrospect, about these 2 movies, I think there was a reason why it was good to have these sort of randomized things where there was very different stuff. I think that it would have been nice to pair both of these with something else.
Yes.
That was a little bit kind of different from each other and not from the same, director or whatever and same voice. I think there is some. So going forward, we'll learn that lesson.
Yes, we'll
Because it's a
certainly.
very strong voice.
It's a very strong voice.
Yeah.
Very strong voice.
Yeah.
Who purposely writes their screenplays to make people uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So having to sit through 4 hours of uncomfortable was a lot.
And then also these are longer movies than other ones are. So there was that on top of it. We spent
They
an
were
extra
longer
hour.
and they felt longer.
Great. Anything else you want to talk about up top before we get into it? Jennifer, you wanted to mention Game of Thrones?
Just that I'm watching it with my mother now. I was a book reader years and years and years ago. When the show started, I was so excited, and then I couldn't make it through the first season. Not because it wasn't great. The actors were great. The production quality was fantastic. It's just that it was so faithful to the books, and I knew the books back and forth. So it bored me. I couldn't. So I quit. But then everyone kept telling me that like season 6, 7, and 8, before it broke with the books, before the existing books ended, it had started pulling in different things that were not in the books. And then, of course, it ended with stuff that those books hadn't come out yet.
Okay,
So, yeah.
I think I might actually be sitting next to a Game of Thrones snob.
I might be, yes.
Yeah. I read the books, and
Yeah.
because the series was so faithful to the books, I got bored.
I am one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so usually, though,
You're not normally like that.
I like both versions of things. It was just so samey. I just couldn't. But now that I'm watching it with someone who has not read the books and never watched the show, I am kind of enjoying seeing her see it. So
these are kind of like shocking things for her,
Yeah.
right? Because does she know nothing about it?
no, she's already asked me what the Red Wedding is, and I'm just like, I'm not telling you. So she's heard of some of the things, but she doesn't know what they are. So
Yeah.
Jennifer's into mom torture.
yes.
It's an elderly abuse thing.
Well, great. Yeah, I'm watching after this. Once we're done here, I'll watch the new episode of House of the Dragon. I want to be clear here. It is called House of the Dragon. They were wrong at trivia,
At trivia.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
and that really frustrated me.
Yeah. Because they made a big point out of that.
Making us
Yeah.
provide a
we
clarification.
had to provide it just so everyone knows. They asked this question where they kind of spelled it out and everything about what's this new Game of Thrones show called, and we put House of the Dragon after a little bit of conversation about is it dragons or dragon. We put the absolute correct thing, and we were asked to clarify because their answer said House of Dragons.
Yeah.
And so we had to we ended up getting it right, but other people guessed House of Dragons and got it. We should have been the only people who got that correct.
Exactly.
that's the second time that's happened to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably won't be the last.
It probably won't be. But then again, us leading an entire game of
That's never good.
of trivia and losing on the last question is,
Yeah.
first off, not unusual.
Yeah, I was
Never
going to
good.
say that's
Not unusual.
It's either the opposite, like you're behind or you're in third or something, and then you win the last one. That's a common thing of us. But then it's because it's down to the last question. We're not boring people with trivia stories.
no.
But if you do have any questions for us, ask us in the comments. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. We say that up top. If you're listening to this later as a podcast, rate us 5 stars and subscribe and follow. Click all the buttons, as we say.
Click all the buttons.
Every button you see, click it. It helps out or whatever. It helps out or whatever. That's what
And
we're
you
going to
can
say.
use both your real profile and then your alternative.
Yeah,
ones.
use all of them.
All
yes,
your profile.
Yeah, juice it.
Yes.
Yeah, we're okay with using performance enhancing things here.
And don't forget to follow Cade on TikTok.
Oh yes, yeah. We haven't made any TikToks out of Double Feature Movie Club stuff.
I know, but you have some good stuff out there,
Yeah.
Cade.
But we do. Yes, we have stuff for Cade and Friends. It's a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, if you haven't checked out that podcast, you definitely should. Great. Let's jump in. We're going to stop putting it off and talk about our two movies. First, we're going to talk about The Killing of the Sacred Deer, and then we're going to talk about The Lobster. But first, Diane's going to tell. We're going to have a little graphic thing, and then Diane's going to tell us the plot of The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I say as I
Look for that.
look
graphic.
for the thing. Wait a second, guys. Say something, Jennifer.
It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
It's all good.
We're good. We're fine.
It's not really. I'm really not going to tell you about the full plot.
Uh huh.
I'm going to let Cade talk about the plot.
We talk more about watching Game of Thrones with my mom.
Yeah. As you can see, these are my notes from Killing of the Sacred Deer. So, yeah. But I did watch the movie, so that says something.
It does say something.
Yeah. And just so people know that this particular movie stars Colin Farrell,
It's Colin Farrell week.
which means that's why we were Colin Farrell week. It also stars Nicole Kidman.
It does, and I got this ready now. So let's hear you talk about that after
okay.
this thing. Oh God!
Oh, no.
It went bad.
It went bad.
It went so bad. I see the ghost story up there, though.
There you It went bad. It went bad. Here you go, guys. I said it was going to happen. There you go, Diane.
All right.
It's your turn.
Is it really supposed to be upside down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It says it. The title's upside, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's artistic choice, Diane.
Yeah, I see that now.
Well,
Yes.
nothing's that part
It's
was
on
cut
my-
out later on the podcast, so nothing went wrong there to point out.
Yes, nothing went wrong
Yeah, go ahead.
at all. Be sure and click that like button.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Killing of the Sacred Deer is a movie about Stephen, played by Colin Farrell, who is a charismatic surgeon who is forced to make an unthinkable sacrifice after his life starts to fall apart when the behavior of a teenage boy he's taken under his wing turns sinister. This movie stars Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman, and I'm not going to point out that she does full nudity in this one.
Thanks for not pointing that out.
I'm not going to point that out. It also has Alicia Silverstone and that Barry Cohen. How do you say his last name, Cade? We've had him before.
We have.
And he's in the Eternals, too.
He's
He
in the
was
Eternals.
Joker in the new Batman movie.
Oh.
Yeah. He is really a terrifying individual. There's something about him that is absolutely terrifying.
Unsettling.
He's very unsettling.
You know, there's one you missed. Actually, I don't think it's listed. I feel like Colin Farrell's beard should have gotten its own credit.
It should have gotten something.
Both
that's
his
for
facial hair in both movies
Yes.
are its own thing. In both are pretty good in their own way
Yes.
for those characters.
Yep.
for those characters. Yeah, the beard in this movie really kind of surprised me because surgeons don't typically have a lot of facial hair just because of what they have to go through.
It
to
kind of
keep from
reminded me of
falling out. I always hate to see chefs with big beards.
Yeah.
It's kind of gross.
Because you know you're eating that.
Yeah, and
and
you
those
know
are
that.
falling into your heart organ
Yes,
as it's
exactly.
pumping. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It kind of reminded me of Oscar Isaacs in Dune.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
kind of similar beard.
Except for Oscar Isaacs his beard was more manicured, let me put it that way.
They're both very paternal beards, though.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're salt and peppery kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. That's been beard talk. Now, oh gosh. I'm kind of wedged in here between these two things. Okay. Can't move around too much. Okay. So I'm right here next to this arcade thing.
And you're
Question. So
Here, let me show you. I just want to show you the audience my notes about the killing of the sacred deer.
here, let me get your close-ups
Can you
there.
see that?
That's really bright.
Actually, nothing on this sheet of paper at all.
I think it does say the title of the movie, right?
It does say the title of the movie. Because I do try to, when I watch these, I try to put all my electronic devices away, so I'm paying attention.
So
to the movie.
responsible.
And I take handwritten notes because I know that, Cade is the filmmaker. He understands movies much better than I do, and I'm there to be entertained by a movie. That's how entertaining Killing of a Sacred Deer was to me. I just want to point that part out.
I'll tell you. So starting out with the movie,
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna love this movie. Because I did like, I like the music that's starting out. The opening shot of the heart was something really interesting, and that's an interesting way of opening your movie. And then I loved that opening conversation of the doctors, him and his anesthesiologist walking down the hall, and they're just talking about the watches.
Yeah.
I'm
Like normal people
Yes.
just having a conversation.
Yes.
But
You've
is it
just seen
normal?
this beating
It's not normal.
heart.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about the
Yeah.
talking in this movie.
Yes, please.
This movie has a very interesting sort of cadence about it, and everyone has this sort of stilted way of speaking. That's very on purpose,
Intentional.
very intentional. You've seen these actors do other things, but they're all kind of talking in this sort of unnatural sort of way.
And I had heard this about the Lobster too before I ever saw it. And we'll talk more about that when we get to that. But just to say, that's positively energetic compared to the talking and tone of this movie.
Yes.
Yes.
It was intentionally meant to make the viewer uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it succeeds beyond expectations.
And I think the best part of that, I mean, because it's like, it's almost as if it's kind of how like people kind of going through the motions and kind of just saying these, because there's this whole theme of the movie, which I really did like, of this idea, which has been done in other movies too, but this idea that people sort of repeat conversations that they hear later, and like they're just kind of just saying things just to say them. And like that's done quite a bit in the movie. The Watches is very thing that's done that, but like later he even like repeats to his son something that the guy told him, and it's just this idea that we just repeat things that we hear other people say, and we don't really have some sort of original thoughts in some cases, and we just sort of take things that we hear other people say.
And conversations by rote.
Yes.
You have beautiful hair. Well, what about my hair, Mom? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we all have beautiful hair.
But then in the midst of that, you have a conversation with someone at an event where he's winning an award, and I don't even remember what started it. It was something like, "How's your family?" And he's like, "My daughter just started her period."
I know. So
Which is like,
completely out of the
people
blue.
don't say that.
But at the same time, there's several situations where they say these things that would not be how a normal person would ever react. And that's also very intentional. Like, I mean, it's not like this isn't like a bad writing or something of that sort of nature. It was very intentional that was the case. And so there is that perspective of this movie that's like going to be very difficult of like, everything that was in this movie is very intentional.
Yes.
It's not
Every
like
shot, every
every scene, every line, everything. It's not like some movies where I say, oh, it's bad because of some sort of unintentional aspect to it, that it just ended up being bad, or these people were incompetent and didn't really know what they were sort of doing. This movie very much did what it was seemingly meant to do, and it was all in very, very intentional. But at the end of the day, boy, at times was it a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
And I
definitely
think that's probably one of the worst things a movie can be in my book. It can be, something can be really bad or whatever, and be sloppy or whatever, and that's bad too. It's another cardinal sin of movie making is just sloppiness or whatever. But and people that shouldn't be filmmakers or whatever trying to do these things. But this one, it did another cardinal sin of movie making. It is that it's boring, in my opinion, for long different parts of it.
And anxiety. How can you be boring and anxiety producing at the same time? Because the whole
does
thing
both.
made me anxious through the whole. Yet I was bored too. bored while being anxious. It was very weird. And I hated the sound. And the sound was exactly what he wanted it to be. It was intentional. But we had these dramatic, orchestral, loud,
I like that. I like that.
and then
jarring
nothing.
stuff,
And then nothing.
Just
It woke me up a
silence.
couple of times. I was like, I got to get out of my.
Yeah.
I did like the music. That was one of my positives that I put. Is I
like-
loved the sort of punctuation of these huge.
Did you know that this movie went to Cade,
It-
and it won for the screenplay,
Yeah, it competed
is
for the Palme
amazing.
d'Or, but it
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah. Mhm.
but it did win for best overall screenplay, which really surprised me. But at the same time,
Doesn't
it was
surprise-
very
Doesn't surprise me, no.
intentional in making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Once you got that part down, then it kind of made a little bit more sense. They talk about the girl starting her period a couple of times. She tells the boy that. I wanted to know, did the girl watch her parents have sex, and that's why when she took off her
Or is
clothes,
that how they do it in this world?
In this world,
I mean,
yeah.
because she did the same thing. Her
She
mother
did the exact same
posing
thing.
as a dead body.
I
you
thought
know.
it was just something maybe
Yeah.
they did until
In this world,
that. And then,
yeah,
well, not in
yes.
this world.
Oh,
I
you
thought it was
mean
just
like
the
just
two of
that
them
couple of- yes.
until the daughter.
until the
and
daughter
then I was
did
like,
it. It's like, oh, maybe it's a
I
world
guess
thing.
this is what we all do.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
For
I
a while
agree.
there, I thought it was just Nicole Kidman and that guy she's married to lives in Nashville, whatever his name is. Yeah, that guy. But-
Keith Urban.
yeah, Keith Urban. I thought maybe that's how they do it. And
Yeah.
they were saying in the screenplay it says, oh, I'm supposed to position myself for sex. Okay, well, let me look like a dead body here.
Now, don't
Like
yuck
she's-
anyone's yums, Diane.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, she laid head off of the
Yeah.
bed
Like she was
initially.
dead.
Initially,
Eyes
Or
open.
like she was under anesthesia
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for
But
the
then-
doctor, which is
but
disturbing.
Then he pulled her onto the
Yes.
bed, but the first part was for some reason laying head off of the bed.
Like she was dead.
Well, yeah. I guess that was to probably get that point across.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
the sort of point. But
Yes.
I mean, but why didn't he just leave the head over the bed? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain
Why-
that to me.
Explain
she would end up on the
anything
floor?
in the movie.
Because she would end up on the floor.
Well, yeah. If
Because
she
she
went
would
any
have
further,
eventually, she would have hit the floor. And I don't think that, although he might have made her,
Mechanically speaking, and with the leverage and the beard, yeah, she would have wound up. on
and
the floor.
although I'm pretty sure that he doesn't, he wants a corpse. He doesn't want his wife to actually get hurt.
Yeah.
out of the whole thing.
But
It'd be hard
then
to
later
explain.
with the daughter, it's like, well, maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe this is how they all do that.
Or she's been watching her parents, or something's going on that's really, really wrong and disturbing. Maybe that's why they did it. The whole thing, the entire movie is disturbing in so many
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
The relationships they have with each other.
Yeah.
The fact that to get information out of the anesthesiologist, she has to give him a hand job. I mean, it was like, oh my God.
Which he had previously already asked for. Like
Yes.
there was an understood sort of thing that
Yes.
that this was something he had previously asked for, and she said no to.
Yeah.
Turned him down. Yeah.
Which,
And
anyway.
and that was all because he wouldn't give her information that she wanted about this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there was
Are
some
we getting into the details here?
I
yet?
guess,
We're kind of getting into
we're starting to get into
the
spoilers. Spoilers.
So where did the kid get his supernatural powers?
But was it supernatural?
So we're spoilers. So yes, okay. So we're full into well, okay. Before we get into spoilers here, I guess we could say that we didn't really spell out the premise all that much. That this boy comes there and things start to the kids start getting ill. Is the sort of that's the
yeah.
premise of the movie.
Yes, this child that Colin Farrell's character takes under his wing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he takes this child under his wing is because
Well,
Colin
that's not
Farrell
clear.
operated. It's not. This isn't clear until later, but Colin Farrell
I
had
guess we're going to
operated on his
spoilers
father.
now.
The father had died, and so he takes this child under his wing because I think he feels responsible and guilty and all those other things, and then
And there's a sort of understood thing that because they talk about his drinking, Colin Farrell's drinking, and that he's been sober for X amount of years. And they've set that up beforehand, that there was something that he wouldn't ever do that again when he was going, because it was at this party that there was this award thing or this reception of some sort.
that he hasn't had a drink in 3 years.
Yes, and that he wouldn't take any because he was going to operate in the morning. And so that had been set up, and so the sort of understood thing was that perhaps he had been drinking, or it is kind of said that he had been drinking before that.
And that's what Nicole Kidman finally finds out after providing the hand job. But the kid, he has mentored this child. He's taken him under his wing as a result of his own guilt, but for a long period of time. And then suddenly this child decides that...
Well, it's odd because he has had this relationship with this person
For years now. Yeah.
But then he's just now introducing him to the family or whatever.
Yeah.
And sort of, I don't really know what instigates that.
I don't either. It wasn't clear.
It wasn't clear what kind of made that jump. I mean, it seemed like this is the first time he's met the anesthesiologist. This kid's kind of encroaching a little bit more on his area or whatever.
Yeah.
So
He's wanting him to replace his father, and it's
Yes.
when he's rejected, when he the lead rejects that role, that the bad stuff starts to happen.
yes, which Alicia Silverstone, one
Well, she
scene,
was fantastic,
One scene, but really
Yeah.
impactful.
yes,
and just as weird as the rest of them.
and she's doing the little voice too that everyone's doing.
Are we gonna lick each other's hands?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so weird.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you. What was it? I'm not letting you leave until you've tasted my tart.
Yeah,
After the whole situation that occurred.
yeah.
So she I don't know, comes on to Colin Farrell. In case people didn't watch the movie, that's what
Telling him his
happened.
hands are beautiful, and then trying to suck his thumb.
Yeah.
And she said, like, don't worry about my son. He wants this to happen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Uncomfortable stuff.
Very uncomfortable stuff. But it is a horror movie, and so
Is it a horror movie? Would you consider it a horror movie? Because that was one of those things too.
You know,
It's
it's one
like,
of those deals where it says it's psychological theater.
Yes.
You know, it's got
but is it a thriller either when it's so
No.
dry?
It is so boring.
No.
But it does say the genre.
It is.
horror.
Yes, I agree. That is what people have said, and that's kind of what I
I
was.
think what puts it over into the horror category is that there's no explanation for how this Martin, this
Mm-hmm.
child,
We need to get the name. So the kid's
Yeah.
name's Martin. What's
Kid's name's Martin.
Colin Farrell's character's name? Stephen.
Stephen,
Steven.
yeah,
Okay.
and then his son is Bob,
Bob. I remember that one. Yes.
and then the girl, whatever her name was. Anyway, what was it?
Sorry.
I was making a
Supernatural.
point.
Sorry.
Oh
it
yeah,
is.
I think the reason it falls into that horror category is it never explains how he does this.
Yes.
Now you could say he hypnotizes them or uses psychological impression on them, but you never see that actually happening in
Well,
the movie.
and the way they accept it, like they don't at the very beginning,
yeah,
but it doesn't take very long till they accept what's happening and believe that the kid is the cause of it.
right,
Yes.
with absolutely no grounds for
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. That
So
was.
that throws it into the horror supernatural kind of category.
And so they all sort of think that this kid's doing well, and so that to me the scene of the movie is when they're at the cafeteria and it's with him and he's telling him that what the rules are of this whole situation
yeah.
is, and how that is brilliance. That one was the one where I was like, that really the tone worked for the sort of thing, and the way that the talking worked, and the way that he sort of delivers the line that he has put this almost like to put this curse on his family is that was great. And how sort of he's like I gotta get going, I can't be here with you, and so he's just like lays down all these rules and what's going to happen to these kids and the family, and he is very flippant, very sort of, hey, these are the rules, and I'm getting this out, and it's great. That's a great scene. And then just cut to he's being escorted out by the security.
But even then, he's not fighting.
He's not fighting.
It's actually for being thrown out of a building. It's very calm.
It's very calm. Like he's just being kind of walked out, and then they just kind of let him. They escort him out of the building, and then he just kind of just walks on, and they just kind of. That was also great. Yeah. I wonder how these sort of these conversations are had of like with the director, and it's like this is the tone in which does he give line readings to these actors, or does he say that I want it like how does, because there's certain ways that like I don't know where the line is of like a director telling these people how he wants these words to be said, but without it becoming line readings. Because they're all talking the exact same way. Even extras, even like bit characters.
The whole world
Yeah.
is that
Yes.
way.
The whole world.
I just I almost wonder why he even needed actors, trained actors. I almost feel like anyone could just read. I mean, there's no tone. To me, there was no tone and inflection, except for a very few moments with Stephen.
I thought
the
he
rest,
was really
it was
good.
just like someone sitting reading the phone book was the tone,
Yeah.
Up until the point where the kids
unrelated to
start
what they're saying.
having issues, and then Colin Farrell does what Colin Farrell, I think, does best, and that is create an atmosphere around him of intensity that you don't know if he's going to murder someone or not. And
And I kind of like
he's
Nicole
that.
Kidman in this movie. I don't know what you got. I thought that was kind of an interesting role for her.
I thought they all did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But they did a good job of like when the turning point happens of like who's going to the turn sort of happens, and you assume like, is this movie going to shift? How's their tone? Is because they're so detached, and how's that going to happen? And how do these act? It was almost like an acting exercise of like, how do you keep that, but also be frustrated about what's happening, scared about what's happening, all that, and it's like, but under the surface, kind of like it was kind of fascinating choices of how you portray that. And even like Nicole Kidman, of where she was like, you got that she was nervous about her kids, but still in this world where people kind of talk like that, that's kind of a typical actor couldn't play those levels of being very subdued while also all that with that sort of going on in her head.
Right. Yeah.
And Colin Farrell was also doing that.
Yes.
It was all flat to me.
Okay.
It was all flat to me.
I know it was pretty intense when Colin Farrell tried to shove the donuts down his son's.
Except for the
Friggin'
few instances when
Yeah.
Stephen lost it. And
Also,
in the kitchen.
the kitchen. That's one of the notes that I had of one of
Yeah.
those ones that I was like, she just says, we're in this mess because of you. And he flips out, destroys the whole kitchen, yells, or, like in the tone of the thing, is upset and goes on this sort of speech and everything, destroying the kitchen. And then she's completely silent and he's yelling and everything. And then cut to, they're in the bedroom and he says, there's no reason for us to argue. And it was all one-sided of him just yelling at her, being completely silent, just watching him. And I thought that was a funny thing too, of him saying, there's no reason for us to argue after he went on this whole rampage. It's funny, kind of.
And that was the scene where when they're in the bedroom and she does her prone thing and he dismisses her. And then she curls up next to him and explains to him how he should take out one of the children.
To one of the children, yeah.
Because she can have more children. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, girl, you just sold yourself,
Well,
didn't you?
and we haven't explained
We've
that,
never
though.
seen
So
a
that's,
mother do that.
But we haven't explained that part of it. We talked
Yes.
about the curse, but not what it is. Basically,
yes.
Well, the sacrifice.
He
yeah.
has to kill one member of his family
Yeah.
before
Yes.
they get to a certain stage of this sickness, or they'll all die.
Yes. And they're all in different stages of the sickness, too.
Yes,
Which
and
was
so they
bizarre.
start. You have the little boy doing his chores when he hadn't done his chores before, and cutting his hair like his father wanted him
Before
to.
we get there, so the stages are, they lose sort of control of their limbs, really their legs.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is fine, but they can't walk. And
and they stop eating.
and then they stop eating, and then the third stage is they start bleeding on the eyes, and when that starts, there's only hours left or whatever they say. And so those are the 3 steps, and whatever that guy's name is, the bad guy in the movie, he spelled that out to him that these are the Martin.
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah.
That in your favorite scene. He spelled
Yes,
it
he
all
spelled
out.
it all out, and that was
Here's
the
what's
sort of
gonna happen.
here's what's going to happen,
And then each of the characters react to that. Mm-hmm. And the little boy,
And
who's trying to save his own life,
Yep.
that's what his father had asked him to at the
do
beginning
earlier
of
in
the
the-
movie.
yeah.
Cut his hair, do his chores, because he was trying to save himself.
While pulling himself around the house with
Yes.
his hands.
So
Yeah.
this is a
Legs
lot.
don't
This
work.
is the part of the movie where I'm like, by that point, I'm like, the cat's out of the bag. You sort of know what this movie is,
Yeah.
and you just kind of wait for this whole thing. And so it's just a movie about these kids crawling around the ground.
Yeah.
And
well,
it's just like, okay.
and also the way Martin explains it in that scene is that it's all about balance. So you killed my father.
Yes.
So now to make things equal, you need to kill a member of your family, and
Yes.
then we'll be equal.
And then we'll be equal.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you get to choose also, you know.
So the son tries to save himself by cutting his hair, doing what his dad had asked him to do.
And this is
And then the daughter goes to
1 hour and 45
dad
minutes into the
and says, "Take me. I'm happy to be the sacrifice."
Yeah.
And then the mother says, "Take one of the kids because I can have more kids."
Yeah.
So they each have their own, way that they're addressing it.
I must say, one of the actual criticisms of the filmmaking that I had from it is that I didn't feel like at times the characters' perspectives were consistent. That I didn't feel like at times it felt like they didn't, like, Nicole Kidman believed and didn't believe, and then kind of just, and then like that sort of character jumped around a little bit of being very nurturing to not, and then like that wasn't clear. And then Colin Farrell was also very much of like, it's in their heads, it's not. And then like he went seemingly back and forth as well of believing the kids it was in their head, and then he got angry and other people said that about. And so I don't know. At times I felt like the characters were not consistent. I thought the kids were consistent. The kids were fine. And I thought the kids actors were actually really good.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. They were never really human to me, and I found this with both of the movies tonight. They never felt real.
Well, they certainly aren't set in reality. Neither one of them.
I do think,
Although the Lobster might be where we're getting close to reality.
Well, but if you think about a lot of the fantasy and science fiction we have, the humanity's real.
Yeah.
The settings aren't. It was almost the opposite.
yes.
Which is why it was so disturbing.
And it's good. I mean, it's like I wish they kind of would have picked. I don't know. I mean, at this point, you're like getting into that's not the movie that he intended to make, and so like that's where I start to be like, I would make this movie differently, but then it's like, but then that's not like he has a strong voice. It's not like it's these movies are uncompromised.
Yes.
And so,
and whether you like them or not, whether
Yes.
they're your thing or not, they're very competently done. They're very intentional. And whether you like what you've seen, they are both extreme food for thought movies.
and I do think, which we'll get into the Lobster later, I do think I would have been better to watch Lobster first and Killing Sacred Deer second.
I agree completely.
Because once you sort of see that perspective, which I think I hadn't seen either one of these movies from his. Once you see his style in The Lobster, which is how people, if they watched Lobster, which it came out first, then you would have kind of understood Killing of the Sacred Deer a little bit better. That it's like still with that style, but no longer comedy.
Yes.
And very much a very dark thing. And so it wouldn't be so bizarre.
So discordant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you watched it in that order, I do wish I would have watched it in that order. And I probably would have appreciated Killing a Sacred Deer a little bit more.
I agree completely.
Because it would have been like, oh, now it's this style in a different genre. But when it's on its own and it's your first sort of thing of watching of his, it's like too many things coming at you.
Well, and he's all about extremes. So he's presenting the ones and the tens, and he strips the 2 through 9s totally out of it in both of them. And you're right. I feel like the Lobster, the way it's done with the comedy to sort of that helps ease the pill.
Yes.
And yeah, the one we saw first was the advanced level.
Yes.
Yorgos Lanthimos movie.
I actually watched The Lobster first because I thought that was my assignment.
Yeah.
So, yes, and I appreciated it a lot more than the second movie. By the second movie, I realized what I was getting myself into
Yeah.
completely. And it was, like you said, he doesn't, he plays the extremes on both sides. I had a tougher time with the logic and Killing of the Sacred Deer. There was a missing piece of logic in there for me that the Lobster didn't have. The Lobster has logic to it.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with the logic or not is another story.
Yeah.
But at least it does contain logic to it.
Yeah. And I
There
think
are rules, and he doesn't break those rules.
And I think that where you're saying how the comedy helps ease, and you kind of are able to sort of do things like, okay, it takes place in this comedic world, and when it's like this dramatic where it's like, I don't exactly know the rules set up in its killing of sacred deer. It's like, and you still don't really know what are the rules of this movie takes place in. Are we completely divorced from this reality of the world? And, or are we, what is this a supernatural? I really wish that was sort of also somehow, but that's also not the point of the film. And so it's like, I mean, I that's just me from a personal viewing standpoint, is I wish that was a little bit smoothed out. If this is some sort of, the answer is it's some sort of cosmic thing. I almost think like some sort of karma situation. But then why does this guy know the absolute rules of this situation?
Because it seems like it requires some intent from him. Whether it requires action or not, I don't know. But it's like he shapes it in some way, but it never tells you how. And
there is the only sort of interesting thing is in that kitchen scene where he's saying, well, what do you want me to do? Fix this with some sort of spell. And there's that sort of thing is like the only time anything of that's ever even mentioned is this sort of thing of like, we're dealing in some sort of spell situation. And I'm like, in some sort of curse thing. The word curse is never said, but that's a hinted at of some sort of magic situation. And like, that was a kind of an odd sort of situation. That's like, we're going to somehow counterbalance this with some sort of spell of some sort. And that's somewhat like, there's an interesting thing of that, of like, he's this man of science, and that's even brought up. He's a man of science. And the idea that he's wanting to go through this through a scientific thing, and that being where he's in a different movie, that would have been the crux of it. That would have been the thing of him trying to come to the answer to this and go through the science channels and then being like, there's nothing wrong with your kids, and him like trying to figure out this some sort of occult thing or some sort of side to it. In a different movie, that's would have been the whole thing. But in this movie, I don't really. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of other things because that's. That it doesn't really focus in on one thing. And that's whenever, like, later on when we recommend all this, I don't know what audience this is for. And I don't typically think a movie needs an audience per se. I'm not a big fan of when things are said, this doesn't have an audience or whatever. But I don't even know what to say if you like something, if you'll like this, because I don't think it's a full horror. I don't think it's a full thriller. To me, the stuff that worked, and if the only thing that'd make me interested in it was kind of thing that I gravitated to. I think it kind of works as a family drama in a weird world. I kind of like the intricacies of it being a husband and wife tale and the kids, and then her being interested in this boy. I like family dramas, and from that perspective, I did kind of like that.
I reject that completely. I don't know. I can see where you're coming from with that, but I didn't get, they weren't human enough to me to get any kind of family drama out of it.
But I kind of like that they weren't human.
Well, and also was the horror. Is the horrific part of it supposed to be that it's not horrific? Because, like, when he gets Martin in his basement, if you describe that to someone, it would be horrifying.
Yes. Yeah.
But watching it was not.
It seems very plain, very.
And Martin's not even horrified. Yes. And he's been beaten, and he's just sitting there like, tra-la-la.
Now you've hit on something interesting here. What is not seen in this movie is almost. This is going to sound like it's some sort of praise. I don't mean this as a praise. In either sense, it's almost Shakespearean. Yeah. In the sense of like, there's which in Shakespeare, because I'm not a fan of Shakespeare. So when I say something Shakespearean, it's not it's not a praise. Okay. But it's almost Shakespearean in the sense of in Shakespeare, which is what I hate. One of the things I hate about Shakespeare, but it's also of its time. That's the point of its time. These plays are people talk about what happened.
And all the action happens off stage.
All the action happens off stage. Yeah. All the things that are said, everyone just says, "Oh, you just missed this guy just got stabbed. That was crazy." And that's the play. All these scenes take place with people talking about things that just occurred. And so when you explain the stuff that happened in a Shakespeare thing, it's like, wow, that sounds interesting. Well, none of it's in the movie or none of it's in the play.
I hadn't thought about that, but the death of the father, the actual cursing,
yeah.
the beating of Martin, the taking of him,
The love story that bloomed between the two of them that happened off screen.
What was that?
But also the taking of Martin and the freeing of Martin
Oh yeah.
were
That
both
awesome.
off screen.
Yeah.
And so these real big action things where you see these, when you would see these characters have to come to grapple with certain things and actually take action, all just talked about off screen. And it is in that sense very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
And
It's an excellent point. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
And that was just one of those things of like, where it's like, you know, in movies they say, of course, show don't tell. But again, intentional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like one of those things of like, and I don't know if you write yourself into a corner where then you have to have Nicole Kidman do something, you know, like, I don't know. Like, cause like that's a motion that you have to sort of go through, but I don't know. I mean, that's just a fascinating thing.
So what would you rate this, Cade?
Are we done? We're done talking about this sort of
Is there
stuff?
anything else there to say? The story is based upon a Greek mythology story of, you know, someone
very loosely. I was going to say he, and I think this is also somewhat the point of the movie. So I think this is what you're supposed to say, but he chose the wrong kid, right?
But he didn't choose.
He didn't choose.
The whole point was he didn't choose.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I guess what you say, the wrong kid died. The wrong
Yeah.
kid died.
The wrong kid died.
The wrong kid died.
I thought that kid was Nicole's favorite, and I thought the daughter was probably his favorite. That would have been. That's kind of how.
Now
that
that you say that, they
That makes
presented
sense.
scenes that made it
seem like that. So
Yeah.
That is true.
yeah.
Um,
I want to know what you thought of the very last scene of the movie.
Yes.
Where they're in the diner.
The Sopranos of it all.
The very last.
They're in there eating, and
they're
Martin
sitting there
comes in.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And she takes the ketchup.
I was
bottle.
thinking of both of them ended on a diner, Sopranos sitting.
yeah.
So, sorry. Yes, the very last scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just completely when you said diner, I could only think of the ending of the last movie. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, like, because it had been spelled out that this daughter had. We just kind of been dancing around this. The daughter of this family develops a relationship with the bad guy, with Martin. And she says to the brother that she's going to run away with him essentially after this is all said and done. And so they all go to the diner at the end of this movie after they've killed
Except Bob, because he's
Bob.
dead.
Bob's dead.
Yeah.
And somehow, I don't know how they're going to explain that, but oh well. Give it
All
that
the
shot.
action takes place off
Screen, yeah. So they go to this diner that that previously Stephen and Martin would go. That's where they would meet at, and they go there and they're eating. Well, really, I think the daughter's the only one with food, right?
Yeah.
And she drowns her fries in ketchup, which previously he had said that he eats his fries last.
And she's eating them 1st. Yeah. But
Drowned
this
in
is
ketchup.
also
Drowned in ketchup, which he didn't.
after she said she was going to run away with him. Then she went down to try and do that, but also to try and save herself.
Yes.
And Martin refused.
Martin refused.
So
Refused to break
that
those
running
spell or
away
whatever,
has been
next.
yeah.
And they all just kind of look at him, and it's just all silent. I mean, I don't know.
And he looks at them, and it's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really have any strong opinions about that. I guess there was something there. I mean, like they all kind of stare interestingly at each other.
So I think we've talked about every scene in the movie now. Almost.
Yeah. I have. We talked about. I did like. One of the things I did like was how they did these incredibly wide shots. I love the wide shots, and then punctuated by extreme close-ups that unnerves you every time. Of just like these. I did like that a lot, and I love the cinematography in general.
Visually, it was very much like the sound. Mm-hmm. It was all extremes.
Yes, it was all extremes, and that was sort of the point. Yes, and there were
As
these,
was the screenplay itself. The actual script was all very jarring.
I like the sort of tracking shots. I like the ones that were from like a high angle that like tracked above people. It was almost like scraping across the ceiling of buildings. I liked that, and then just and then cut to extreme close up of spaghetti or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He said
to me that was almost more disturbing than the cafeteria scene. Him eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
And he ate it just like his father. Yeah.
But then he found out everybody eats spaghetti the same way.
By
this time, I'm barely watching the movie.
We didn't get your close up of your oral eyes. Now it's on your close up.
My eye roll.
Yeah.
You can't really see it because of my glasses. Oh my God.
Oh, we saw it. That was perfect.
Okay. Now we're gonna go into our rating. So I don't even know how I'm gonna do this. Vamp for a second while
Just
you guys
do stars, because you're not gonna find an emoji for what I'm doing.
What do you what's your favorite Colin Farrell movie that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh gosh, I can't really. I've seen several, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. I haven't before these two. I hadn't seen. Oh, what is that one? The one we saw, the comedy.
in Bruges.
The Gentleman.
No,
in Bruges
the Gentleman. He was fantastic in that tracksuit in the Gentleman.
Oh my God. So good.
That was hilarious.
The Gentleman's really interesting. It's an interesting movie,
Yes.
and it's to me, it's a Hugh Grant. My God, Hugh Grant. I would say that's Hugh Grant's best performance.
But Colin Farrell
he was also great. Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah,
He was
McConaughey.
with Colin Farrell, you can get either In Bruges or you can get A Winter's Tale. You just never know. I bet you never saw Winter's Tale.
I never saw Winter's Tale.
Horrible. But anyway, you just don't know what you're going to get. I think there are things about his acting style that works well with this director.
yeah.
His ability to be intense without moving. You know, there's things about his acting style that work with this director in a good way. He was really good in 13 Lives. Very understated.
He was excellent. He very unlike some of his other things. He was very chameleon-like.
Right.
He melted into that guy. Yeah. Instead of being Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
As someone. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to give this movie, my rating is I'm going to give it the heart emoji and the actual organ.
I thought you would do that. Yeah.
So that's mine.
All right. How many of those out of how many?
Heart emoji is what I'm giving it.
Okay, so no numbers. All right.
There is no number
There's no number
in our world.
We don't do that anymore. We don't.
Nope, we just give it an emoji.
We just give it an emoji. What are you going to give it, Diane?
I'm going to give it a glass of wine.
A single glass of wine.
Single glass of wine.
Oh, that's wine emoji.
I try to give it whatever it is.
Now you see my
There we
panic. This is
go.
what happens behind the screen whenever you say what you want to put every time. One,
Yes.
just a single.
You
There's
just
yours.
said we don't do numbers.
Well, sometimes she does.
Sometimes I do. If it
We're not
depends.
consistent.
We're
I
not
don't
consistent.
put multiple emojis unless
I
they're.
did
Do you
4
listen to our podcast, Jennifer?
Yeah, exactly. I did 4 boxes of juice last week because the movie had 4 boxes of juice.
Okay.
And Jennifer, what are you going to give this movie?
Pubes and teeth.
Okay, I don't have anything for that, but
No.
we'll just go
Maybe
to
you can do a tooth.
Oh, okay.
And anyone who's seen this movie will understand why. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see. Teeth. Toothbrush. Maybe I put tooth. Tooth would make a little bit more sense. Tooth. Okay, good. We got tooth.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, when he hit
I'm
the
not gonna-
floor.
I wouldn't
That was
search for the
great.
other one.
some sort of hair.
Because if you remember, they didn't find them in their cupboards either. So,
Yeah, which we knew.
yeah.
The okay. No,
Now,
there's
that would
no
have been
hair.
interesting if they had. What a
Yeah.
twist.
What a twist. Great. Well, that's been that movie. That's been The Killing of
Would
a
you
Sacred Deer.
recommend people go see this movie?
Oh, yeah, we're
or
supposed to do our
spend money
recommendations.
for it or what?
Typically on these things, I say for a specific audience, I recommend pretty much anything if that is up to your up your alley. Some people like this movie, Diane, and I personally, from my perspective, I didn't. I would not recommend this movie, which is sad because I was somewhat interested. I think, to me, if you cut a half hour out of this movie, I would probably be okay with it. I'd probably be like, sure, in all honesty. I think that you could easily cut some stuff, and then it would be like, not too bad of a little thriller. It would kind of make it a little bit more brisker pace, and I would kind of end up being like, sure. And it was I would, if it was just a slightly easier watch.
Yeah.
But as it stands, I know it's just kind of too much of a chore.
I agree.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big chore.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it either, except if you were a student of film and you're interested in someone playing with the normal levels of things in interesting ways.
Yeah.
Then as an experiment.
It's a good experiment. I was actually going to mention it's actually really an interesting, because like you see where he went too far in some ways from different things, and it's like I'm actually glad to see kind of his works of being like, now that's interesting, and sort of playing with how people speak and how different, we get so many samey styles of acting in films.
Yeah.
And I like that he's giving us something different that we just don't see. And I think that it works in like a Lobster in a way that this one, I like the idea of like him taking, I want that, but not in a comedy is kind of is an interesting idea. But I just don't know if this was the right script or plot for that. Like, I think you can almost take the same exact script, same exact lines, same exact things, clean thing, and it make it a little bit more. It kind of would be an interesting thriller.
It'd be more of a family drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the family never meshed because of the uncomfortable way that they had to deliver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I did love a lot of those lines. I
Yeah.
did. The lines are, I mean, like, I guess what I say, like, the screenplay, I get, like, getting it. Like, there's some really, really, like, clever lines. Interested, the MP3 player thing, like, that was fascinating. There's a lot of just interesting, like, oh, what does that mean? Or, like, it just sort of like, what that just sort of kind of makes you think, and then just sort of how people, how stilted it is, but, like, also just, like, how it plays into how people actually do talk, and against, like, no one talks like that. There is some interesting lines in it. There's some really interesting lines. Great. Well, that has been our discussion of The Killing of the Sacred Deer. Now we're going to move to our second movie, our second feature, which is The Lobster. We'll have a short little intermission. Be sure to grab some popcorn and stuff from the concession stand while we quickly have our intermission, and then we'll be back for Jennifer to tell us the plot of The Lobster.
Of The Lobster.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
There you go, Jennifer.
All right. So, I'm going to try and wing this. My original plan, and I had a plan. I was going to find a really awful review of this, but a funny one.
Oh,
And use that for my summary. But most of the bad reviews I found for this were not humorous. They were just angry. So I didn't do that. So basically, in this one, it's a dark comedy, and we're in a world where you must have a partner. If you don't, you have a time limit to get one. And if you can't, rather than allow you to be alone, you are turned into an animal of your choice to live out the rest of your days. That's the premise of this movie.
That's good.
That's
And
good.
we will, we'll break down the craziness from there.
Yes. So we're talking
Yes.
The Lobster.
I kind of love this movie because none of the characters have names.
Yeah.
They just have titles, like the hotel manager.
Which
The-
Olivia
the
Colman in this.
nosebleed.
Oh my
She's
goodness.
fantastic.
Oh
She
my-
is so good.
That's
I feel like she's the best part of this.
yes, she is. I have two notes. You want me to read my two notes for this movie?
Sure.
Since I'll show that I have, I had much more for Killing a Sacred Deer. My notes are Colin Farrell has a dog again. Because the last time he had a dog, so that's these
Both
movies
movies had a dog,
has
yeah.
Colin Farrell and a dog. This is the extent of my incredible work into this movie. That's one note, and that happened at the very beginning of the movie, and then throughout the entire movie, the only other note I wrote down was Olivia Colman is too good.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
She was really good in it. Now, just so everybody knows that the dog in this movie
He's a
is
person.
actually Colin Farrell's character's brother, who could not find a mate
Yeah,
and chose to become a dog.
everyone
which-
chooses a dog.
Yes,
But we have our
according
dog
to
problems.
according to Olivia, it's why we have a dog and cat problem in this world.
Yeah, everyone chooses that,
Yes, and
which I love.
and
Lobster's an excellent choice.
Colin Farrell's character's name is David. So because we'll use that term then or that name, he plays David. No one else in here has an actual character name. So
I was kept waiting of is Rachel Weisz different looking than I thought she was? Because she's I thought I even saw her on some things get top billing above him, which is bizarre. She's the narrator of the movie, but then she of course comes an hour into the movie.
yeah, she comes in the last act. Would you say? Or
The
middle
acts
the
of these
second.
movies, I don't.
Yeah, those.
It's a little
he
bizarre.
doesn't really have
They
acts
are
in
bizarre.
his movie. Yeah,
I would also say she's the narration of this movie, along with the humor, is why this one goes down better.
oh yeah.
The narration gives it almost a fairy tale like quality, aside from the fact that they're being turned into animals,
Right.
and you've got weird animals running through the background of.
And you have
so many
probably
different
more
scenes.
action on screen than off, other
Yep.
than turning them into animals. They don't ever show you how they do that, but
And you have them kind of saying things comedically, it's still with
Yes.
the same thing, but it's kind of kind of a little bit like a John C. Reilly is
Yeah.
playing it like a subdued comedy, but a comedy nonetheless. And everyone's kind of playing it as a very dry comedy.
And I've
And-
heard people talk about how flat it is, but it really, after watching the other one first,
Yes.
it was not at all flat. I
No,
could
I
see
agree.
if you
I didn't
watched
think
him
of
in
it
the
as
other
flat.
direction.
I saw it first. I didn't think of it
Yeah.
as flat.
My
The
favorite-
opening scene, the very opening scene of this movie, where the other one started with the heart beating. This one shows a woman pulling up in a car at a corner of a pasture, and there are donkeys
Pasture.
in this field, more pastures, and she shoots one of the donkeys dead.
Yes.
And
Which
the
how
other-
do they do that scene?
yeah.
That's one of those ones that's I don't know how you even do that.
Well,
get
you
a
train a
stunt
dog.
donkey.
Yeah. A donkey that goes, okay, I know how to fall.
Yeah. on cue.
Anyway, yeah. And it's also set
I
in
like the
Ireland.
other donkey walks up to that donkey are you? What's wrong?
Yeah,
or
what's
something.
wrong with you?
Fred.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and the movie is set in Ireland, and which last week's movie we had one set in Ireland. So people look
We didn't talk about how. Just go back. Killing Sacred Deer. Cincinnati.
Right.
They play in Cincinnati. We
in
didn't say that.
Cincinnati.
Sorry. Go ahead. but in Ireland.
This one's set in Ireland, so the people look normal. They don't look like movie stars. There is no over 50 Nicole Kidman naked in this movie because the people are more normal looking than they are movie stars.
Well, she was the wife of a well-known heart surgeon, so it kind of she fit in that role. I felt like.
Okay, so anyway, getting back to the lobster.
Sorry, you were like bashing Nicole Kidman, and I wasn't going to
I
have
didn't
it.
say that. I didn't. I never bashed her. It's just this is not an Americanized movie.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Okay, it's not an Americanized movie. This is a like
And also,
people movie.
where in what world is Rachel Weisz a normal-looking person? But okay.
But she's in a poncho through most of this movie.
Yeah, this
so
is not-
she's
yeah.
not her usual fare here. Yeah.
I think she probably was more cast because she would be a good narrator than anything. But anyway, so the opening scene is like, I mean, it's hilarious. It's horrible that the donkey gets killed, but it is played for laughs.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Well, it's played for laughs in the sense of like, what is this movie? You know, like,
And
you know,
it's
it's like
foreshadowing.
it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's meant to sort of be startling, and
Yeah. I liked it much better than the Heart one. Yes, as far as an opening goes.
But both of them are kind of like, boy, how did they get that shot? And it was kind of it intrigues you in the sense, from a filmmaking perspective, of like. For me particularly, it's kind of sets you off in like that's kind of an interesting from a filmmaking perspective of how you were able to sort of do that of like from that perspective of like you'd have to train a donkey to fall on cue.
They have trained donkeys. They have horses that'll fall on cue.
But donkeys are different.
No, they're not.
They're different. They're different. They're not horses.
You can train anything to fall on cue.
Yes, you can. They're handlers for that.
But there's also the fact that it all has to
How
be
do you
one
know
shot.
it wasn't a CGI donkey?
It was a real donkey.
Yeah.
And the
We
fact,
saw this movie not too long ago about wranglers who, taught.
But like the fact that like not only that of how it was timed with like the windshield wipers was really kind of cool, and how it was one shot. Like it was a cool shot. Like they had to be during the rain. Like there was a lot of things that wasn't just like, let's just go out in the field and get a stunt donkey and it'll just do what we need it to do. Exactly. It was kind of, there was a lot of thought process to it. And the fact that the other donkey walked over to the other donkey, there was just a lot there.
Yeah, like Fred.
Yeah.
It was a great opening scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of all that, it was a great opening scene.
And even though it was killing the donkey, there was a charm to it.
yes,
Yes.
it was. And
A
then you
whimsical
go-
something.
And then it switches automatically to Colin Farrell. You never see the wife who's telling him their marriage is over. And he's like, first he has no emotion at all, other than that, are we sure we're going to do, you're really leaving me, right? And then you find out that this world that he's living in doesn't allow for people to be single.
Yeah.
And he's got 45 days to find a mate. They ship him to, this hotel where they have all these rules.
Yeah. It's an interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you meet the hotel manager who is played by,
Olivia Colman.
and she's wonderful. And she explains the deal about.
There's so many things. My
And the
favorite
So many
husband, too.
rules.
The song they do.
The song.
Oh my God.
Song. There's too
That
many
was
scenes with them that's
I
like
have,
Yes.
oh my gosh,
Yes.
it's so hilarious.
the whole dance scene in general
Yes.
of like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
harkening
Yeah.
back to like school dances. And they're like singing, and she's singing like they're both completely off key, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that is brilliant stuff, and it just goes on for the appropriate amount of awkwardness of like where it's just like so over the line, and the fact that like I assumed that this was happening in the evening, and then it like they open up the curtains in broad daylight. There's just so many things. It's like and the
this
fact
is
that they
their-
had the dresses, that they all had uniform.
Yeah, that they had
Clothes.
the same clothes and all that stuff. And then this was their mixer where they were going to be able to meet other people.
Yes.
And of course, there's no names. It was just people described.
Yes.
Yeah, like the lady with the nosebleeds.
Yes.
That one, I'm sorry, but I had to laugh.
Yep.
It's a terrible thing to have, I'm sure. But and then the guy who decides he wants her for a partner.
Well, that's a great theme that's continued throughout or maybe not theme, but a thing that's repeated throughout. A motif is this idea that like you have to find these common traits between you, and it's like no matter how obscure, and you have one sort of quality.
Obscure but superficial.
Superficial,
Super
yes.
superficial, yeah.
And and like that's and that's so hyper focused on as if that's like your one sort of trait that you have.
We're short-sighted, so we're meant to be together.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we have nosebleeds, so therefore we're meant to be together.
Yes. And that's really great and all that. And just sort of what it's saying about all that of like how superficial all that sort of is great. I wanted to point out my highlight of the movie was another Olivia Colman one. The singing's second, a very, very close second. But it's the one where like a man eats alone and
Oh my gosh. Where they're doing their role playing.
they're role playing, they're up on
So that
stage.
everybody in the
Because
audience.
it's like a scared straight sort of
Yeah.
thing of like,
Yeah.
why are you still single? This is what happens. Yeah, it was great.
You can choke to death if you don't have a partner.
Yes, and so they show both sides, one where he's alone and then one where he's with the partner, and so
The same thing with the women where, they can be attacked.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and they have both of that's just, and then just sort of the dryness in which Olivia Colman just owns that dryness of how she says these, and like she's just announcing what's in front of her, and she's great in this. She's absolutely amazing in this.
I don't know. The scene where John C. Reilly has been caught masturbating. She puts his hand in the toaster. Oh,
I just will take a warning.
did you not?
Yeah.
laugh your ass off on that one.
Uh-huh.
Which is one of the rules in this place is you can't masturbate. But
Yeah.
the maid is going to come in every morning and
Yeah.
present rearward, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yes.
And the sort of
Go,
point
Joe
is to sort of shame them into being like, or like have them like come to their senses, like as if it's like they're making this awful decision and to be single or whatever, or that like, don't they know that what they're doing is awful and that they should be, why don't you just get with somebody and fall in love? Like, just do that. And that's the hysterical sort of thing of like, they keep just sort of these different like tactics to try to be like, find somebody, it's really, it's where a lot of the humor is. Yeah.
Okay, and
In the first half, at least.
There's one scene that I really loved it in the first half, and this is the fight scene between John C. Reilly, the nosebleed guy, and Colin Farrell's character.
Talitha Range or whatever.
These men slapping at each other. Oh my! I laughed so hard I cried
Yes.
watching these guys in their fight, their big fight scene.
That's also the line of which, something about how they make the targets single people instead of
Yes.
couples is hilarious. That's a hilarious line.
Yeah.
There's so many great.
And then you get to the blonde girl. Colin Farrell tries to have a conversation with, and he tells her she has beautiful hair, and of course that was her whole narcissistic,
She knows that. Yeah.
She knows, and she would rather become a pony with a beautiful mane than to find a mate.
Yeah.
And her best friend that delivers that eulogy about, and then she hauls off and slaps the crap out of her.
Well, she also did say that I'm gonna, you'll be the best friend I ever have, and even when I move on, or what, like it was some sort of thing. And then she slaps her, and she's like, "I'll watch Stand by Me." It's my final. Olivia Colman, and Olivia Colman's like, "Excellent choice." Just ignores the fact that she just slapped this lady.
I know. And she says, "Stand by Me" with River Phoenix.
She names the whole
names
cast.
the cast.
And then she's just like,
Cracked me up.
and this lady's like over there, just like been slapped because it's all in the frame, and it's just great. And then Olivia Colman's like, excellent movie. Because before that, she's like, this is your final day as a human. You need to select something and make sure it's something that you can't do as an animal. It's got to be something specifically that. So don't pick walking through through a field or whatever. She like listed things that you could do and whatever. Yeah, that was a funny scene. And the fact that she's just like, because she's like tells them reading a book or watching a movie, so a good use of your last day as a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason the movie's called The Lobster is that's the animal that Colin Farrell picks.
Yes.
And he provides his justification for that because they live 100 years. They stay fertile for that entire time.
Yes.
What was the other? Oh, they have blue blood.
Blood like royals.
Like royals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it was John C. Reilly who pointed out that you're going to end up in a steam pot.
Yeah. Because they all sort of make fun of like their animals or whatever, and it's it's a whole thing.
And then where the fight broke out. They were
Yes,
slapping each other. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
because the other one was like, I'm not gonna. But I love the story of the guy the nosebleed guy who but his mother was a wolf. That story was also
Hilarious.
yes.
And the reason why he had a limp.
And he went to visit her at the zoo, and yeah.
Was attacked, and and two of them stood back and watched. He thought one of them might be his mother.
Yes, I know that one of those wolves.
One of them was my mom.
Because he didn't know, because the wolves got moved to this sanctuary, the zoo or whatever, and he didn't know which one was his mother, and so he wanted to hug her, and so he jumped into the thing, and but two attacked him. But yeah, so great comedy, great things. We just ruined so many different jokes. To me, the first half is so much better than the second half.
Yeah, me too. What did you think of the hotel? Were you reminded?
Oh,
of
like
any,
you're gonna say Shining is Shining. I love the design of the hotel. I love just the lore. Yeah. I do like when sort of things go like this movie overly explain everything except for the transformation sequence, which I thought brilliant of not explaining.
Yeah,
don't
explain that.
This is the other option of like this killing a sacred deer, of where they keep something secret, and it's like I
just
like
a
it.
room.
It's a room. It's a room.
Never going. Yeah.
And he never told her what he did.
What he turned that one lady into, and it's just like perfect. I don't need an explanation of that. I like the sort of simplicity of that, and the fact that he could just take someone in there and do it himself. Like that's also just a bizarre, having no knowledge of it, and that just all of that is really great.
And the race or the chase scene that led up to that.
Oh, yes.
Can we talk about that? The awkward shots through all of the halls.
Gosh, no
like
kidding.
they had to have made that much longer than it actually would have been.
Because she's walking him, but so he does say that he falls. So there's rules of so if you do select a partner, then you go to a couples room. You get relocated to a couples room there, and it's 2 weeks there, right? And this
I
couples
think 2 weeks there, and then 2 weeks on a yacht.
2 weeks on a yacht, and if you do have any sort of problems, they'll assign you children, because that will certainly that'll make things better.
Everything better.
And so you go to a yacht, and then from that point, if you survive, I think 2 weeks on the yacht, then you go to the city. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
And
you can become a couple.
You can become a couple.
You can be a certified couple.
Yes. So that, and then, but if it falls apart at any point, what happens? You get turned into a thing, or do you?
Well, you
try
go back,
for the rest of your time.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's right. Yes.
And you can extend your time.
Yes.
At the hotel, and your ability to find somebody by chasing the loners.
Yes.
Who have escaped.
Or people who have escaped the hotel.
And you get days at it if you,
Yeah. And they all wear like rain gear.
Ponchos, yeah.
Yes. But they also have their own rules, which as Colin Farrell finds out after he takes his potential wife to be transformed. After she kills his brother.
So, yes.
Not the dog.
And she's the heartless woman or whatever.
She's heartless.
And so because he has this dog around him this whole time because it's his brother, and she kicks the dog to death.
Yeah, and she has this bloody leg.
Yes, the whole thing.
That shot bothered me more than the shot of the dead dog.
The leg.
The shot looking down her leg. So you've got the edge of this prim dress, and then you've got a virtually clean leg and this bloody leg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that she has that all the way through the whole that whole scene even that follows it. And that's I mean that's something. That's I mean like and the fact that he had previously been set up that he was a deep sleeper. And so he slept through all of that.
The whole thing.
And she's like, "Did you slept through the whole he was yelling the entire time or whatever." I guess you really are a deep sleeper.
And then she catches him crying. I'm not really crying.
Yeah. And so then she's going to take him back. So anyways, we're really walking through the whole plot of this movie. so then she takes him, and then he escapes, and then he knocks her out with the tranquilizer thing, and then turns her into some sort of animal we don't know. And then he leaves the property of the hotel and joins the loners. And that's when you meet Rachel Weisz, and the whole second half of the movie kicks in.
Yeah.
And I don't think that to me, that's not as interesting. I did, because there wasn't as much lore, and it seemed to be more like, because that's really what I'm watching this movie is for, these rules and these things, and for the comedy. And I think the comedy ramps down, and I think the lore is less interesting because it seems like it's just these group of bandits and their rules, instead of like the systematic society rules. Are you okay?
I'm choking over here. Would you put me on mute? Too.
So, Diane will be in the background talking to our conversation. But no, I loved, so you're back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the fact that if you were a loner, you could masturbate.
Yes.
But you could not become a couple.
Yes.
So it was like the opposite.
It was the opposite. It was sort of to show the sort of other side to this sort of thing.
And
Of like,
the
they're also
actress that
ridiculous.
plays the loner, she always plays somebody really scary.
Yeah, what was she? I've seen
She
her for
was
something
in
recently.
Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. She was the
yes.
arms dealer that
Yeah.
killed. Yeah. What else? She was in Robin Hood, where she played the princess to King George, or the crazy
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that was just heartless, ruthless.
something else too, but yeah.
And she's been in a couple of things.
Yeah. And
But
I wanna
out
say
there
she was
in
in
those
some sort
woods,
of Marvel thing too.
she was, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, which one it was.
Anyway, they're out there in these woods where the loners are, and they're living literally in the woods.
Yes.
And there are all these animals out there.
Just roaming. Camels going by behind them. Yeah.
Flamingo.
Flamingo, the
Peacock.
the pig.
Yeah.
And then you find out that the maid who has been providing stimulation to the male residents, or I guess just male residents, I'm not sure, that she is an insider to this loner's group.
She was in that James Bond movie. Sorry. That most
That's
recent
right.
James Bond
She was in
movie.
two
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that was the thing I was thinking of. But go ahead, yes.
Yeah. So what was the purpose of the head of the loner group going into
The city.
no,
Oh.
not going into the city? That I understand. It was going back into the hotel.
Oh, that one. That
Yeah,
sequence.
yeah. I thought
think
it was,
it was
to
to-
shut it down, but it didn't shut down. Did
No,
it?
I think it was to show them their own sort of hypocrisy. I
Yeah.
think was
Yeah.
just the point.
Yeah.
Which I think if they were some sort of like weird, like the way that you would do this in other movies is there's some sort of terrorist group, right?
Insurgents,
Like
yeah.
insurgents.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better way of saying it. They're some sort of rebels or some sort of
Yeah.
thing. And that would, and so like, and it seems like that would be the sort of thread for that is them going back and trying to topple this thing or do something or try to get themselves out of this situation by causing them to not. Yeah. And so that seemed to be something that you would do in that sort of situation, but yet that wasn't seemingly the
It
reason that they
didn't. Yeah,
existed.
they just kind of okay. We're done.
But that was also a great scene with Olivia Colman again.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
seemed to get her back in the movie, and that was
It was
great.
worth it.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
To get
not
her
going to
back in-
complain. Yeah.
But it really didn't. I mean, it was like,
Yes, sir.
okay, well, this is not going anywhere.
But that was more interesting than just them being out in the woods to me.
Yeah. They
And
had to
so
do
and
something.
then them somewhat falling in love as well, and just sort of I by that point I'm just like, okay, now wrap up or do something interesting or
Yeah.
pivot in which it's not just sort of these people out there and their sort of, because it wasn't societal rules, it was just these group and their weird rules, and it's like do something else, make them like an actual organization of some sort,
Right.
and they have rules there too, instead of just being like this group of people out there that's just
That-
making their own rules for
It
some
was
reason.
also showing it's a reactionary group, but it's also no better
Yes,
Right.
than what they were reacting
which is the
to.
point. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, which I did like that.
Here's the thing, though.
See, I like the city stuff. That was
did
the
too.
that was
Yeah.
the stuff that I wish there was more of.
Yeah. And I did enjoy this a lot more than the killing of a sacred deer. But again, it wasn't successful for me for the same reason. And I think this is just personal taste. It's all the extremes. I feel like the project is to show us some deep part of about humanity, but I feel like it's superficiality masking itself as something deep because all the nuance is taken out of it. And I think that gives you some artificial absurdity that can be hilarious and thought-provoking. But because it is artificial, does it actually say anything about that? Because ultimately, they're not human. That's not human. There's no nuance. There's no grays. Humans live in the grays. And so it has something to say, but is it really saying it about us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the
That's
point
what
is
even the
it's
dog
supposed,
dying didn't bother me.
it's supposed to be kind of a funhouse mirror of our world.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of in like the even kind of, you're supposed to see sort of, even though they do act a little bit weird and everything, you do sort of see some of ourselves in some of this absurdity. Like, it's heightening the absurdity and the surrealness in a sense, in playing for jokes, but you can even see in that where it's like 2 or maybe 10 degrees off of just our own world, where I did not see that in The Killing of Sacred Deer at all, really, except in some sort of scenarios, but not, it was a little bit more murky what their perspective of that movie. This one, I understood the sort of perspective of what they were trying to say, of like even just how we view sort of relationships and view sort of this pressure for that, and then how even like you were saying, of like in a grand scheme of things, sort of reactionaries are very much just creating their own sort of world in which they have their own little rules of that's pretty much the exact same thing, but just from the opposite perspective. I think that was fascinating. Once again, a lot of stuff could have got cut out of it. It's also that sort of scenario. And there's also like avenues that I'm like, now that's a fascinating avenue, but also you don't need to explore it anymore. You've done enough there. there
We
was
only
more
needed one visit to the parents' house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the view of the city and the outside, because I love seeing that. I love seeing the city and how this all worked, and then them getting caught in the mall, and then that whole sort of like almost where's your papers sort of scene that these things all have. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, because it's a kind of a heightened super awareness of life, which is what you want movies to do.
Yes.
Right?
But a heightened one, it's heightened artificially, is the way I feel about it, because everything in the middle is stripped out. It's absurd, but it's not absurd in a realistic fashion, which I know there are other movies like that too, but I just feel like the humanity is gone, and it's gone to the point where I know the dog scene bothers a lot of people. I saw that in reading the very angry reviews when I was trying to find a bad review that was humorous, and it was all just angry about the dog. I can't watch Old Yeller to this day, but I could watch The Lobster over again, and that scene wouldn't bother me. And I had a border collie growing up.
Yeah.
Because it didn't touch me at all, because it didn't even feel like a real animal, much less his brother. So
that's also, it's probably somewhat for, I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. Now the comedy was successful.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that aspect of it. I
took-
also think at a different point in my life, I would have been obsessed with this movie to the point where I would have gotten some tattoo, either like Blind Eyes or Lobster or something. I think in my 20s, maybe when I felt more of the couple pressure, it would have meant a lot more to me. I would have felt it more. I think I'm divorced enough from that aspect of my life now that I was just like, meh.
Yeah, I didn't love. I mean, it had certain problems and everything, but I found it, of the two, it's the most enjoyable.
I will agree with you there.
And it moved at a brisker pace. I do think that there were some things of like, I got it or whatever, and like I said, the second half it dropped down, but I did find it what it was dealing with to be interesting. What you were saying, what I read is sort of the interpretations of like this and Killing a Sacred Deer, of how they talk is the point is to be like, these aren't human. Like, the point is that you're not supposed to connect with these characters, more so in A Killing of Sacred Deer. But,
and that's a stumbling block I couldn't get past as a viewer. I think I have
that's
to
one
be
of
able
those
to connect.
Things of like, all this is intentional, but whether or not, it's hard to
It's
sort
not
of
a mistake.
complain. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a mistake. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to rate this. Diane, are you going to say anything else? Or you got it?
The only thing that I would add is, of the two movies, I enjoyed this one more. I think that any time that you can have a movie that can take and show you what society can be, you should pay attention to that. 'Cause there's a lot of people who really and truly believed that we wouldn't be where we are today, but here we are. So you have to kind of go, okay, this is what this movie's trying to at least show us what society can do to itself.
And it wasn't
whether
like
you feel like these characters are real or not. This is something society can do to itself when it tries hard enough.
yes.
So anyway,
I'm going to give this a lobster.
you're gonna get. Well, I knew you were gonna take the lobster.
Just wanted that off the table.
I'm gonna take the coffee because it's the only drink they showed.
Yeah, because
and-
you
Yes.
can only do coffee, or you can only do drinks.
yes, so and the only drink they had in the movie was the coffee. So yeah,
Reject all. Coffee. How many do you want?
just one's fine.
Okay, good.
Well, two. I mean, yeah.
Two?
No,
Two.
two is fine.
Two's fine.
Yeah.
There you go. 2 coffees.
Okay. I'm going to do one leg from the knee down.
There you go.
From one.
That was the most disturbing thing.
Yes, that
was
I did
her
find disturbing.
bloody
The,
leg.
the visual of that was very disturbing for me, more so than the dog.
I closed my eyes. I never saw the dog because I knew they were going there, and I thought I already saw the leg. I didn't need to see the dog.
Well, it was like a puppet with a little
Yeah.
some meat on there
Yeah.
in the middle. That's all it was.
And I was divorced enough from the characters and what was happening. That
I was more
it wasn't
impressed
a
by
real
the
dog.
donkey than a
I
stuffed
was
dog.
very impressed with the dog
Because I don't know what I
thought
don't
that
care
was
what
a
you have to
great
say, but this
opening scene.
but the donkey falling over is that's an actor right there. He needs to be in more things. I also love the flamingo. I'm a big flamingo fan. I almost give it
Yeah.
a flamingo because I just love seeing flamingos.
know,
More flamingo representation in film.
I knew I was stuck with drinks, or I would have given it a flamingo.
Oh, yeah. And Jennifer is over here just doing whatever she wants with that because she's our guest, right?
Yeah,
You
she
know?
can do whatever she wants.
Yeah, she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Great.
Would you
so-
recommend this?
Oh, would I recommend this movie? Yeah, I think I would actually recommend this one. I it's kind of a fun watch. I think it's kind of because there's the moments of it is kind of really interesting, and I do think you can probably just switch it off once he leaves the place. Think of it as a short film of him. Then when he leaves, that's it. That's the movie.
Well,
there's
true.
some good things in the second half, but to me that's not worth it. The bright spots were a little bit fewer and far between. So start it, watch it till when he leaves, and that's a good enough movie. That's a fine enough movie.
I mean, I think the only
Which
thing
is not
that,
what the director
that-
wanted, so I'm recommending not the movie that he intended to make.
The only thing I would say about the entire movie is that he is a rule follower, and he follows the rules. He's mild-mannered throughout the entire movie until the very end, and he makes a decision for himself. And that's worth it.
Yes.
there.
Well, to me, we talked about how Killing Sacred Deer characters are kind of, and they do things that's kind of opposite. Very clear characters in this one, I thought.
Very
Oh,
clear.
yeah.
Very, very well drawn. Very, very clear of why that they make the decisions that they make. Like at no point did I think that they're like, oh, well, that goes against what you've set up already. No, I thought they all sort of made sense and did what they were supposed to. Would you guys recommend it?
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
I'd recommend this one. Yeah. With caveats.
What's caveats? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it to my friend Ava. I don't know if she ever joined.
I don't know if she joined. Yeah.
Yeah, because the dog, that just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
That would be, no.
Yeah. And if you do have any questions about these movies, submit them. We're going to go into, or just for about us in general, you can ask us. But we're about to go into our last part of our thing where we're going to preview next week's movies. So
Oh, yeah.
let's see. Pull that up for me because I don't have that ready. Here's preview time.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
When it comes to entertainment, you just can't beat a good film. Right, Diane?
You cannot beat a good film.
Our next movies that we're talking about next week, which we believe will have Ava, longtime listener of our show, and she's been on the show before if you recognize her.
Flying her in from Wisconsin.
We'll be doing it back to our virtual things. But the movies are The Kids Are All Right and Wildlife. So those are our two movies we're doing completely different from. That shows the breadth of what we talk about here on Oh, I still have these emojis on the screen. The breadth of what we do here on Double Feature Movie Club, a lot of different stuff. So should be fun to look forward and to see those.
Looking forward to watching that.
Me too. One's a romance.
Yeah. You wanted wildlife on there. I think we had mentioned that because we had watched Ruby Sparks. So Ava did just wave hi to us.
Hi, Ava.
So she'll be on here next week to discuss those. But yeah, so we wanted to do that because this is Paul Dano directed thing. So it should be interesting. Should be interesting. Jake Gyllenhaal. We love Jake Gyllenhaal.
We do love Jake Gyllenhaal. Mm-hmm. Although, like Colin Farrell, you can go really, really right or really, really wrong.
Yeah. Did you hear that he says he doesn't wash his hair?
Jake Gyllenhaal
Mm-hmm.
doesn't wash his hair?
That's what he said.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's the whole thing.
It's a wonder he didn't have dreads. How can he not? How?
Yeah, so it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing.
I had not heard
Everyone wear your red scarves or whatever.
I know people in real life that don't wash their hair either.
But they're
I don't
dreads.
understand
Usually they like grow them out to be dreads, right?
Not necessarily.
It was a whole thing that he says he doesn't bathe regularly. He just kind of, and it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing that he kind of said. And then like people was like, well, it took that a little bit out of context. And it's like he started to walk it back slightly, but he said what he said, and everyone
He said
heard
what
it.
he said. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been fun. Did you guys like the first in-person one we have here? Ooh.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with your studio. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is an amazing studio.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm glad that you liked it and everything.
Yes, I would be happy to come back. And
We'll do that. Will we do it again for your next one?
Yes, please.
Month or two? I don't know when
it was
it is.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'll have to see.
That has been really fun. I really enjoyed it. We kind of somewhat talked throughout these movies. It's been fun. And look forward to Cade and Friends thing. Anything you guys want to plug as we wrap up here? You want to plug anything, Jennifer?
Next week's show. I'm looking forward to listening to you guys next week.
Yeah.
Great. Anything you want to plug, Diane?
Anything I want to plug? Did I already plug 13 Lives on Amazon?
I think you did that last week.
I did do that last week, didn't I? Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
Anything
I
have?
didn't watch it. I don't watch The Invitation in theaters. I'll use my plug time to say
throw that out there.
unplug. Hey, I went to see that in theaters, and boy, that's a thing. It's a long movie. I was like, is this movie not over yet? How many of these maids do I have to see die? And before, because I'm like, I've seen it all in the trailer. I know where this is going. It's one of those movies where they kind of spill it out too much in the trailer.
Yeah.
And then by the time it gets to the point, it's like, oh, if this was the point, why wasn't this like shifted to like the middle part of the movie? In the second half, you're dealing with the ramifications of this. But no, I did not do that. So I say, don't go watch it. Boycott the movie.
Boycott The Invitation.
Yeah. But interesting to announce, I actually do think this would be kind of a cool thing to mention here. Next weekend, almost all of the theater chains and theaters in America are doing a $3 movies.
Oh, really?
It's for the first annual Cinema Day, Saturday. Oh. Every ticket on Saturday is $3. No matter 3D, no matter what the type of movie it is, the little jarring, seats, whatever it is, all $3 across America on Saturday.
I'll have to avoid the movies on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be crowded.
It's going to be crowded. And it's they said it was to try to counterbalance how some of the, hasn't been too busy of a time. Mm. Yeah. So.
Well, that is true. It hasn't been.
That was in the big theater where I went to, the Invitation. There was, outside of me and my father, there was, I believe, 6 other people in that giant theater. But then again, it was that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you could watch the trailer and see that movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I'll tell you, lead actress, she's been in other things. I really like her a lot. And so nothing against her. And she was doing a good job with what she had. Nothing against any of the actors, I guess. But really primarily her, nothing against her. Oh, well. Great. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining live. Again, if you want to watch this live, it's 6 p.m. Central on Sundays. That's when you're watching this, but also for future, if you want to make a note to watch this live. If you are, it's also available the next day as a podcast. So whatever you do, if you want to re-listen to this, if you watched it live or missed a part, you can watch it then too. whatever you do. Jennifer likes watching this listen to this as a podcast, right?
I love to listen to this as a podcast. Yeah.
So we have different things. Ava watches us live. Jennifer listens to us as a podcast
At double speed, so we sound like chickbucks when we're talking.
So great. Okay, thanks for joining us. Let me get this ready. Wait a second. I don't have the little. Okay, now, bye everybody.
Bye. Till next week.